No.
Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio. We are brought to you by championnews.net. This is Carol Parisi. Today, our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have Jerry Kohn, who's a teacher that's part of the public school system that's not part of the union.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes no sense to me. Every teacher has to be part of the
Makes
union.
all the sense in the world.
But
you say you just don't understand what happened here.
Well, I don't understand what happened here, and I'm sure there's a lot of teachers that you could empower with some of this information, because our teachers are great. And I talk to a lot of the moms in the area that are teachers, and they hate having to pay union dues. And they hate having to be told who to vote for and all these other things that go on. So what have you done?
You know, what's very interesting about Jerry is, and I found out a little bit about, you spanned that period of time back when teachers had freedom to join or not.
Yeah, well, at least in many districts,
the
yes.
whole system got changed into a compelling, join the union or you're out of here, man.
Well, yeah.
But you know what bugs me?
But that's your story.
But you know what bugs me? I'm just going to throw something out here. I'm hearing that you had an option when you first started. You had freedom to choose. You had a choice.
That's correct. Yeah.
And your choice was because you chose not to perpetrate some of the agenda that your dollars were going to. Yeah. And that is a true choice. That is being pro-choice, if you will. But all of a sudden, all these pro-choice people are giving you no choice. I mean, there is so much ironic hypocrisy to the left. It befuddles my brain.
Yeah.
But,
Socialists changed the meaning of words.
oh my gosh, talk about twisting.
It's like peace is a cessation of opposition.
Move. That's deep. Well, and now, what I also find to be interesting is, Jack, your article was written when? 1993?
I didn't write it, but the
article
one I
that you
referred to
promote-
in Forbes magazine was 1993.
And you became a teacher when?
In 1990. Well, I've been a teacher before that, but I started in my current job in 1990-91.
Okay, so that's all that same type of thing.
He
So,
preceded, you know, there was a time when the NEA and the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, were decent working people's unions.
Well,
And in the case of the teaching unions, they were professional unions. They were unions of professional people, which teachers are.
you know what?
But that dignity was taken away when you saw those people rioting in the streets, and that's done under the promulgation of the NEA, which deliberately set out to change the whole system. You can hear the pronouncements of the presidents of that union from way back when. They deliberately set out to make children the willing subjects of the new social system that was coming.
Well, you know
By the way, there is a professional organization alternative to the NEA. I maybe throw that in there. In fact, I'm a member of it. It's called the Association of American Educators, the AAE.
the Association of American Educators.
They're not a union. They're a professional organization. They're non-political. One of the things that the union sells itself on is saying, well, if you are a member of the union, you get this professional liability insurance. They provide twice as much insurance for half the price without all the politics. So, I mean, if any teacher's worried about the liability insurance, go on AAE.org and check this out, because they offer much better insurance. It's a more professional organization.
It'd be one hell of a lot less cost than the union do.
And it's $15 a month.
Now, Jerry,
That's all it is.
some of our listeners may perhaps be teachers or know teachers or love teachers.
Right.
What can they do if they do not really want to be part of this and they don't want to suffer chastisement?
Right.
Because in talking to a lot of teachers, well, you have no choice. They feel like there's a gun at their head or a knife at their throat. I mean, the thuggery tactics.
Well, you do have a choice. I mean,
you do have a choice.
They don't need those brutal instruments.
They may not make it clear to you, but no matter what school district you teach in, union membership is not mandatory. Now, some districts like mine have what is called an agency shop. But you can file an objection. And, like in other words, the union is going to basically use the contract. They negotiate these contracts with the school board that makes agency fees mandatory for everyone, whether you're union or non-union. So if you're non-union, you pay the agency fee. Or if you're union, you pay dues, but it's the same thing.
Now, I have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Are you in an area where a lot of your teachers have taken your situation and not become part of the union? Were you the fireblazer, the trailblazer, if you will? And how do your colleagues react to you that are very heavily involved in the union? Because there's that chastisement, that Alinsky, isolate, make them feel bad.
He didn't have to walk a picket line to assert his rights.
No,
it's there.
Yeah, I get along with everyone in the district,
agree
by
with
the way.
you, but
He utilized what was there. He's a smart man, and he refused to be just a dummy.
But Jack, I've got to tell you something. A lot of the teachers that I talk to have this fear factor implemented inside of them that I am going to be chastised by my colleagues. I am going to be mocked. I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm not going to get the work. I mean, they're scared when their contracts come up.
But they have got the National Right to Work organization, which has quite a number of attorneys, and they've been fighting for this freedom for people for quite some years. I'm an old man. I'm 89 years old. I've been a member of the National Right to Work thing. As a businessman, I contributed to them and a moderate amount of money through a lot of years. And I've seen their place in the union picture. You know, as international trade developed, America had to compete in the making of automobiles with Japan and so forth. And they had their lunch handed to them, because the foreign countries weren't hindered by the union. They weren't deliberately making rust buckets in Japan, and we wound up having to compete with them. There wouldn't be any automobiles made in the United States if we didn't have the right to work law. So what happened is free people organized to do things that are necessary. And the unionization in manufacturing went from 40% of the workforce back in the 1940s and so on. It went from 40% down to today it's about 7 or 8%. And that's because we have to compete internationally, or we aren't going to be there.
But you have no problem in your school. I mean,
incidentally, let's make it clear. The people that are working in national right to works, the states that have put the right to work law into place, that you don't have to join, you don't have to pay the average $1,000 a year tuition, pardon me,
union dues, yeah.
You don't have to pay that in those states. And the people who work there, their pay increases at a greater rate because they are with companies that are more successful
and
in the market. And in
that.
short while, the wages are higher in not right to work states. Work is more productive, and
they actually have work.
You actually have work. They don't have people sitting in rooms doing nothing.
Making $40 an hour
Well,
playing
what's
cards.
interesting is the unions are terrified of right to work, and they've spread all kinds of misinformation about exactly what it is. It's they make it sound like people are going to be back in sweatshops again.
Right.
And they even argue, and they've made the argument that the right to collectively bargain will be taken away, and it isn't. All the right to work does is say the worker has a right not to pay dues to the union. You can still join, you can still collectively bargain. The Wagner Act still applies, but they've spread all this misinformation out because they're terrified that if people actually had a choice, they would choose to be non-union, and they don't want to let you have that choice.
But they will bully you. If you are a
bit.
teacher, they will bully you. That's why I'm asking.
Be quiet a moment. You're going to learn something here.
I always learn something.
The National Right to Work thing started here in the state of Illinois with Senator Dirksen. Was the guy that did the filibuster against the Taft-Hartley Act, Section 14B, which required the joining of the union at the national level. He filibustered it. That great orator. and he gave the opportunity for the National Right to Work thing to exist. And
it was Taft-Hartley. Right?
And
what year was
it
that?
allowed an American worker to fight for his own independence, to where he didn't have to join a union. And because once they had that law that you had to join the union, all of a sudden there became a lot of industry where the people that ran a company made a sweetheart deal with the union, and the workers were caught in the middle. They had to join the union, and all their problems with trying to please the people are gone, because now the union would just keep them in line. So you had things from where the people were abused from both ends of it, and you got it all the way to Walter Reuther and the guys with the leather gloves that got people unionized by violence, and they used violence. They beat people up with a sausage if they didn't go along with the union.
But here's the deal. When we come back after the break, Jerry, I want to hear how our teachers can go ahead and do what you did if they choose not to be a union member.